back.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. So, Jules Opton Himmel is here. He is the owner and a farmer, I should say, of Walrus and Carpenter Oysters. And that's what we have here. Exciting! But you're not just doing that, you are also farming sugar kelp, which is pretty exciting. And research has found there's a growing trend in sea vegetables. So I wanted to bring you on today to talk not only about the business side, but the environmental side of talking about aquaculture and sea vegetables. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Molly.
Yeah,
thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate you coming up here. You guys have a ton of stuff going on, so you're super busy.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year for sure, yeah.
So this is amazing that you were able to come up. So you actually have, tell us what you have here.
Yeah,
I'll let you talk about
absolutely.
it, not me.
So yeah, we are originally an oyster farm. We've been in business for 8 years, and we started with our Walrus and Carpenter Oysters in Ninigret Pond. And would you like me to look at the camera?
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
Totally.
And 8 years ago, and those are what we call our original oysters. And then we started a new farm in Jamestown 2 years ago, where we're growing Cononicut, which is a different variety of oysters. And in Jamestown, we're also growing sugar kelp, which is a new venture for us that we started about 2 years ago. And that's what I brought some samples of it. It's actually right around now is the time to harvest it, so it's good timing. In the next 2 weeks, we'll be harvesting our entire crop of kelp, because if you wait too long, it gets fouled with other organisms and it's not as marketable. So we got that going on. We got the 2 farms. This time of year, we seed the oyster farms. So we got 2 million new seed last year. We put them in our nurseries, and then we're moving seed from Ninigret to Jamestown and stocking and growing that farm. So it is a very busy time of year, and our sales go through the roof around after Memorial Day.
That's amazing. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about sugar kelp, because this is what I've kind of heard is the question being asked, and I mean, America, it's a little bit different than other places in the country, but is kelp the new kale? So let's talk about this and really how you got into farming kelp. Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I personally don't think that analogy probably holds. I was recently traveling in Japan this winter for a month, researching sea vegetables and how people use them and consume them there. And it's such a different culture, and their food, everything about their food, their diet and their type of cooking and culinary world is so different, and it's all based on the sea and sea vegetables, where it would be a dramatic shift here for that to happen. Though a lot of things have caught on, and I think there's a lot of potential for it, but I think really the potential for kelp is more as an ingredient in food and other products, rather than just something one would eat by itself, like the kale chips idea. I've thought about that, and that's initially I've been thinking about this for 5 or 6 years and been really interested in sea vegetables, mainly for the environmental reasons, because I studied environmental science in grad school, and that's why I got into this business. And the oysters are very good for the environment, and I've kind of figured that out, and I've been doing it for a while, and I wanted something new that had potential to be good for the environment, good for the community, good for the economy, and I felt that sea vegetables was that. How to exactly market it is something we're figuring out as we go, but there seems to be a lot more interest from food producers and wholesalers rather than end consumers. So integrating kelp, for example, we're doing a partnership with Foolproof Brewery, and we're harvesting 100 pounds of kelp for them tomorrow, and they're going to brew a kelp and sea salt beer.
Cool.
So that's a great use of it, where it's not the main ingredient, but it adds that umami flavor, which is what a lot of chefs talk about and what sea vegetables do provide, which is the 6 sense and 6 flavor. And so that's exciting to me. And then we got lots of calls from people that wanted to make chips that had kelp in them, or make sauerkraut or kimchi, or different products that would integrate kelp. So I think that's really the potential. And for us, that's great, because we can focus on the hatchery stage and the farming, and then we can sell it in larger volumes rather than having to create a packaged food of our own, which is where we started, but that seemed too complicated.
Okay, so you see that's potentially where the market trend, at least for you guys, is going on that business side of things, where initially that's not maybe where you got into it.
Yeah, initially we thought, we can make a shelf-stable consumer product, and started looking down that route, and then realized that world is so different from farming and what we do, and it's so competitive that it would be better to focus on growing it and let others figure out, how to package it, how to incorporate it in other products, which people seem really excited about. That's why it's great to get the word out and do this kind of thing.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, excuse me, tell me a little bit about what sugar kelp is. Let's get back to that because you're out there farming it in the ocean.
Yeah.
You're in Narragansett Bay. I was looking at pictures of you. To me, this is so cool, the potential for it. And then I want to talk about what it is, and we'll talk about the business. And then definitely want to get into the environmental aspect of it because that's kind of why I brought you on the show, too.
Sure. Well, this is sugar kelp, so we brought some samples of it, and this is
which is what people see when they go boating and they're trying to rip it off their propeller, right?
Yeah, different types of seaweed. See, it grows on, I'm going to make a mess here, which I typically do wherever I go.
That's cool.
But it grows like this in kind of a cluster, and this is where it attaches normally to a rock on the bottom.
Okay.
But we had created in the hatchery, we took wild kelp, kind of like this, and when it gets ripe in the fall, it gets a dark brown stripe down the middle.
Okay.
So we go out, we dive in October, November, and we collect wild kelp that's ripe, just a few pieces of it, and we take it back to our hatchery, and we incubate it so that it'll release the spores, and in just a container like this can have billions of spores. So by drying it out and changing the light period, it'll release the spores when it's ripe. We take those spores and we put them in tanks, and they settle on 1 millimeter twine. So we did 6,000 feet last year of twine that we wrapped around PVC pipes at 200 feet each. So whatever that is, we did 60 of those or something, and then they live in tanks for about 6 weeks as the spores mature. So they attach to the twine, and it gets darker and a little bit bigger until you can see it with the naked eye. And then we take those out to the ocean, and we wrap the twine around half-inch lines that are submerged underwater. So we did 6,000 feet of those in Narragansett Bay.
How deep do you have to go?
Well, we experimented with 0 at the surface, 3 feet and 6 feet, because it needs light. So if it's too deep, it won't get enough light. It's a plant. We found that 3 and 6 worked pretty much the same.
Really?
So yeah, you need to have at least 6 feet of water below it as it grows, so it's not hitting the bottom and getting destroyed. But one site we're growing it in is about 30 feet, the other is about 12. And it's all kind of an experiment. I mean, it hasn't been done that much in New England, so we're figuring it out as we go, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Fortunately, this has worked really well, and we'll be harvesting, a few thousand pounds in the next week or so.
Wow.
And what's kind of cool about the kelp about this prop is this: if you dip it in hot water, it turns bright green. It's kind of like a I don't want to ruin your phone.
Oh yeah, let's definitely not.
You need a waterproof case. So if you dip the kelp in hot water, it turns bright green, which is kind of a cool thing that chefs can use it for. It's like a magic trick. And it's really, a beautiful addition to a dish. And a lot of chefs have used it as a garnish. North Bakery is using it in a sauce that they make with noodles. Gracie's is incorporating it into their sea salt. And I'm probably forgetting some folks.
My turn, because I'm 10 years old.
It is kind of fun.
So
it has those culinary uses too. It's kind of more of a garnish or an addition to a dish.
Oh my gosh, that's just really fun.
Yeah.
So when you're going out there, you're experimenting with this. What does it take to say, okay, I want to be a sugar kelp farmer? Because this is native to Rhode Island, right?
Yeah.
This
So what we caught, what we harvested in the beginning was a native kelp that was growing in the wild, and that's what we used for the parent material. And then you can only grow native species in Rhode Island for any type of aquaculture. But to become a kelp farmer, well, first you need a lease, an aquaculture lease. So it's kind of makes sense for oysters are 99% of what people grow in Rhode Island as aquaculturists. So I think that the future is really other oyster farmers growing kelp on their leases, and to do that, you need to get a modification of your lease to grow a new species.
So you guys are already doing it on your own property, like where you already lease?
Where we lease, exactly. Okay. And that's what was initially appealing to me about this additional crop is, three things. One, it uses a lot of the same infrastructure. So the anchors we have in place, the floats, things we've already invested in.
Do it. Okay.
Use. Two, it grows in the winter, and oysters grow in the summer. So when we sink our oysters to the bottom, then we can grow a second crop on the same area. You know what I mean?
That's great.
So that's nice. And the third, and then it helps me to employ more people in the winter. Normally I have to have more seasonal help, so it kind of will even that out. So that was really appealing. And the third thing is it's very low profile, and it happens in the winter when most people aren't using the bay. the biggest impediment to the growth of ocean farming in Rhode Island is user conflicts. People want to sail there or kiteboard and views and clam and fish, and everyone wants to use the bay for different reasons, so you have to balance all of that, which is a challenge in a highly populated state. But in the winter, there's not that many boats out on the bay, and you could be growing kelp in a lot of areas that are heavily used in the summer, and you'd be there just for those 6 months in the winter and then out. So I think that creates a lot of potential for economic gain in the state that's not being realized right now.
So when you're out there, because I find that really interesting. One, not only are you essentially not really creating jobs, but you're keeping jobs that you would have had to possibly let people go because they're technically seasonal,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
So you're keeping those jobs on longer. But when you're working with this, it's on the property that you already own. Because that's kind of what my question was: is how do you make this economical, right? To kind of keep things going. So do you think for the industry moving forward, is it kind of up to other oyster farmers? Can other people get involved in this? I mean, because you kind of already had the space to do it, right?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the economics of it is a big question across the board in the United States because growing sea vegetables is a new industry, and there's always going to be, the unit cost of production is going to go down as we get more efficient and bigger, but right now it's kind of unknown, and the market is very much, do you sell it for this amount or this amount? It's unknown at this point. The nice thing about
it's new here. It's not new other places, but it's new here.
Yeah, in Japan it's a $6 billion industry. I went to visit farms in Japan where there were 800 boats farming sea vegetables on 60 square kilometers, so it's giant.
An article that you had posted on your guys' Facebook, I read it, Cook Science. This article said seaweed is currently a $5 billion industry and is projected to hit $20 billion just within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's potentially...
There's a lot of potential,
potentially you could make some money off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you figure it out.
And our idea is, since we have the hatchery space down in Point Judith, and we've invested a fair amount in that infrastructure, is we'd like to grow more of the seed lines and either give them to other farmers and then buy back their final product, or just sell the seed lines. So really a hatchery or a nursery for kelp is what we would like to see, and then we'd like to see a lot of people growing kelp on there.
Which I find absolutely fascinating because you're kind of the first one that's really digging into this. But what you talked about before is you wanted to get into it for the environmental aspect, because right now our oceans are kind of in peril. We're kind of going down a road that a lot of people don't know, and I've talked to multiple people on this show just about the state of our oceans, about the state of sustainable fishing, talking about what we can do to make better choices, whether it's buying local or eating more shellfish, or what it takes to make better choices for our oceans. Talk to me just a little bit about sea vegetables and kind of why you went down this road and why this might be a good choice, whether it's we start incorporating sea vegetables into our diets, or why this might be the best path moving forward, consumer-wise or business-wise, for the environment.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, there's really three things that make ocean farming very appealing. One is overfishing. Our wild fisheries are being depleted. Some are doing better than others, but there's too many people eating too much fish, and there's not enough fish to go around. So farming of seafood is going to have to be part of the future. Two, food, the whole food system in general. So when a lot of our vegetables and our meat and our terrestrial farming has a lot of negative environmental impacts, especially at scale. A lot of pesticides, a lot of herbicides, excessive nutrients, a lot of fossil fuels, whereas ocean farming generally is very low impact. We don't feed any of our oysters or kelp, so that's a huge benefit. We don't use a lot of fossil fuels. We can't use any pesticides or herbicides or any sort of chemicals because it's in the open ocean. So really, to produce this type of food is much better for the environment than most food that's grown at an industrial scale. So that's two. And the third is the animals and the plants themselves help to restore the environment. So the oysters filter the water and take out excess nutrients that come from human activity, and they clear the water. The kelp does the same thing. It uses excess nutrients, and it sequesters a lot of carbon. So the nice thing about both these crops is they're actually can be a positive for the environment, which is pretty unusual in the food world or food production world. So those three things combined got me into ocean farming. the sea vegetable specifically, just oysters are a luxury item, you know, and it's great. It's a great business. People love them. They enjoy them, but it's really not a staple food product. Whereas I see as kelp could be a major ingredient in a lot of foods. It could substitute a lot of more environmentally impactful ingredients. To me, that's what's really appealing about it. It has that potential to be much larger than just an expensive appetizer. I shouldn't say that about oysters, because oysters are great. You should eat as many as you want.
You're like, and eat mine. And come eat mine.
But the kelp has more potential to be a staple part of the diet.
And do you think like that's what it takes as we move forward to make changes within diets? I mean, and like you talked about, some great local businesses doing amazing things, incorporating into beer, incorporating into sides, incorporating into... I mean, do you think that's what it takes to move forward to make changes for our planet, for our oceans, is taking something like this, sea vegetables, kelp, and putting it out there, and then up to the consumers to say, okay, let's try it, even though it's...
I mean, I think that the onus is not necessarily on the consumer. It's also on the producers and the chefs, and to create something that's palatable. Like, I don't expect people to eat something that doesn't taste
right
good.
Now.
Right, exactly. Like, I don't think that's the future. This has to be made into something that people want to eat.
Yeah. So
that's kind of on the industry side. But I do think that the consumer is more interested in food that's good for the environment. Obviously, there's a big upswell of anything that's local gets preferential treatment. You know, we sell a lot.
Especially here.
Yeah, we sell
here it's huge.
A lot more oysters in Rhode Island because we're in Rhode Island. You know, and we go to New York or Boston, we don't get the same market share. So I think that's great. And then I think the health benefits, there's a big segment of the population that's intrigued by the health benefits and the benefits of the environment. I mean, people are eating crickets, you know, cricket powder. You wouldn't think that would happen. That seems very
I have not tried that.
hard to believe, but that's actually a viable business, you know. So I think that as our planet changes and climate change has a huge impact on being able to grow things and our lives in general, we're going to have to think outside of the box and eat things that are not, you know, your typical high of the food chain or whatever we've been eating. And I think we're going to have to produce things differently, thinking about our future in terms of the climate and the energy we use and the chemicals we use. And I think that has to be part of the equation.
Cool. Well, as moving forward, I'm excited to see what you guys do. For production, I mean, could you really eat this? Could you just eat it plain?
You can eat it. I mean, it's a little better when it turns green.
I'm going to do
the green
it.
part.
Okay.
It's not very flavorful. It's kind of like, you know, eating cabbage.
It is? All right.
A little salty.
So I should... Did this come straight out of the ocean? Or
It
where
did,
this
yeah,
come?
right off our lines. We
Okay.
just harvested it.
Is that safe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it safe to just eat it straight out of the ocean?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere that you're growing oysters is highly regulated, and the water quality is really...
Tastes like seaweed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, show us some of your oysters. We have a couple minutes before we have to go.
Shuck some oysters.
Shuck some oysters for us. Talk to us about, because the other thing that's cool that you guys do is your summer dinner series, which is insane. Talk to us about that as you're shucking some oysters.
Sure, yeah. Well, this is the 5th year we've been doing the farm dinner series, and we partner with local chefs that we supply oysters to, and they come out to the farm and prepare a 4-course meal on a sandbar behind the farm.
So cool.
So folks come out and they get a tour of the farm in one of our workboats, and we explain ocean farming, why it's good for the environment, some of the things I was telling you about, and just kind of soup to nuts how we produce an oyster. You know, it takes 2 to 3 years to produce these. And
really? I didn't know it took that long.
Yeah, so we get these, you know, when we got 2 million oysters last week, they were only 1 millimeter, and they were in a package about this big.
Oh, that's so little.
Yeah, that'll grow to fill this room 10 times.
That's so cool.
So it's a pretty interesting process. A lot of people don't understand it. Do you want to eat this oyster? You want me to eat it first? I hear you're not the biggest oyster fan.
Well, I'm learning. I'm getting better at it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try. I just ate seaweed. Of course I'm going to eat an oyster. I ate sugar kelp. Excuse me. Is it offensive if I call it seaweed?
I try to say sea vegetable.
Sea vegetable. I ate a sea vegetable.
A lot more appealing. This whole seaweed word, I think that's holding us back.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry. It's sorry. Yeah. Why does it taste? You think it tastes better when it turns to light green?
I think it's just a little less. It's a little more tender that way.
It's good for you though, right? Doesn't it have like a ton of
it's
vegetable?
great. It's got all the kind of essential minerals you need, and iodine. If you just fry that up and put some seasoning in it, it's a lot tastier.
Yeah, I mean, it tastes like the ocean. So if you like ocean.
I mean, it's kind of like whether you just ate raw cabbage or made cabbage into something.
Yeah. So I was reading something else too, that someone like if you fry it a certain way or something or a certain kind, thank you, it tastes like bacon.
Yeah, that's a different species.
Kinds?
That's dulse, which I'm interested in growing.
Yeah,
because that sounds like a good marketing
right?
ploy.
So there's different varieties of sea vegetables. There's all different kinds, and can you take them? Can you take other kinds and harvest them here? Does it matter if it's native?
Well, it has to be native to grow it.
And so this is ready to go.
Yep.
All right, bottoms up, everybody.
And make sure you chew it so you can taste it.
That's really good.
And but yeah, it's just a question of the technology to grow it. It's harder to grow other species.
Yeah, that's good.
So like dulse, we don't really know how to produce that in the hatchery and grow it out in the field as effectively. The kelp is easier. Nori, what they're using to grow in Japan, is a more complicated nursery stage that we haven't been able to do here cost effectively.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes for you guys.
Thank you.
If you're interested, check them out, Walrus and Carpenter Oysters. You have a ton of stuff going on. This has been absolutely fascinating, so thanks for enlightening me.